Hello everyone, I'm Alpha66 and yes, I know, another new background. This one looks a bit more like your grandma's house, but this will be going soon. Now that I've got a desk in, I can finally start recording properly rather than just balancing my tripod on boxes. And just so you know what's going on, that is the wardrobe I was up against before, and here I've got a bit of a setup, I guess. I've got TV, PlayStation, that's pretty much it. But at least we've got the desk now. Anyway, today I'm going to take a look at every English county and rank them based on what their best football team is. Their best football teams based on history, how long they've spent in the higher divisions, and how they're doing now. There are 48 counties in England, and there are 47 in this list. Because there's one county without one, and that's the City of London. Well, yeah, it's right in the centre of London. Of course there's no football teams. Unless these rich bankers actually know how to kick a football. Right, let's go. 47th, Rutland, Oakham United. What do you mean you've never heard of Oakham United? These guys currently play in the 11th tier of England, a regional league in Peterborough. I mean, oh my god, I'm already thinking about switching the teams I support, you know. 46th, Isle of Wight, Newport. No, not the Welsh Newport, before you all start shouting at me for putting them as low as 46th. Newport IOWFC. These guys are another semi-pro team in the 10th tier of England, another regional league spanning the Isle of Wight, Wessex, Hampshire and Wiltshire. 45th, Northumberland, Blyth Spartans. I used to think that Newcastle was a part of Northumberland, purely because it was north. And yes, South Africa is also part of Antarctica, just because it's south. Like Rutland and the Isle of Wight, Northumberland don't have much to show for football. Blyth Spartans are currently in the 8th tier of England, playing in the Northern Premier League Division 1 East. There are a lot of other teams in Northumberland playing against them, but Blyth were recently in the National League North, so they get in here for Northumberland. 44th, Warwickshire Leamington. Starting to edge towards the professional leagues now. Still in the National League system with Leamington. The first of a couple teams in here that are in the National League North. These guys are probably the smallest of the lot. 43rd, Herefordshire Hereford. Now we have the first namesake club, where the name of the club is pretty much also the name of the county. Hereford are also in the National League North, which I find confusing because they're right on the border of England and Wales. They're roughly horizontally in line with Ipswich. So how are they classed as North? These guys were actually only founded 10 years ago, and yet Darragh O'Shea played for them on loan from West Brom in 2017. Still 43rd. 42nd, Cornwall Truro City. Cornwall is one of England's smaller counties, where people would rather spend 9 hours eating pasties than watching football, and Truro City are in the National League after winning the National League South last season. Not much competition in these first few counties, as you can tell. 41st, Surrey Woking. Sticking in the National League, 41st is Surrey with Woking. If only they actually had Jay Cartwright managing them.
I took Woking from the Conference to the Champions League in 6 seasons.
40th, Worcestershire Kidderminster Harriers. This one might seem a bit unfair on Truro City and Woking, considering that Kidderminster Harriers are currently in the National League North, the division below the two. But I've put Kidderminster in front of them purely because they've spent a couple seasons in the Football League before. Neither Truro City or Woking ever have. 39th, Somerset Yeovil Town. Right at the back of the alphabet, not quite at the back of this ranking. Yeovil Town are currently in the National League, and they have spent a decent chunk of time in the Football League. They even spent the 13-14 season in the Championship, playing home and away against the Leicester side that would win the Premier League within the next 2 years. 38th, County Durham Hartlepool United. Apparently some people think that Sunderland's in Durham. No people, it's firmly in Tyne and Wear. So County Durham's best football team is Hartlepool United. Like Yeovil, they've spent a decent chunk of time in the Football League, but they've only ever been as high as League One. But they get in ahead of Yeovil purely because they've spent way longer in the Football League than them. And they're in the same division now, so is it really that big of a claim to say that Hartlepool are better than Yeovil? 37th, Cumbria Carlisle United. Have we any annoyed Barrow supporters? Yes. Me! Look, the Bluebirds are in a higher division right now, but Carlisle have spent pretty much every season in the Football League since the 1950s, until last season where they were relegated to the Conference League for the first time since 2004. So yes, they squeak in ahead of Barrow. For now. 36th, West Sussex Crawley Town. And we are finally into professional football. Crawley and Brighton are Sussex's only professional football teams, and they are in different sides of Sussex. Crawley are the first of quite a few League 2 teams in here. 35th, Gloucestershire Cheltenham Town. Cheltenham are on course for relegation from League 2, and Forest Green are on course to replace them there. So this could come back to haunt me. Cheltenham are the higher division team right now, so they squeak their way in front of these vegan weirdos. God, I can imagine that at a Forest Green game, you'd receive a worse punishment for bringing in a hamburger than a grenade. 34th, Shropshire Shrewsbury Town, another League 2 side that have just come down from League 1 having finished bottom there last year. They've spent the last decade in the 3rd tier. When will the boring sides end? 33rd, Essex Colchester United. My county's only 33rd. Even I'm not that surprised, to be honest. Southend United are probably the bigger club, but they've been stuck in their rival's shadow for the last couple years, so yes. I mean, does anyone actually care about the Essex football clubs? Half the county supports either West Ham or Spurs. 32nd, Kent Gillingham. Just in front is Gillingham representing Kent. They've spent the last 20 years jumping between League 1 and League 2. They have spent a couple years in the Championship, and more than Colchester, hence why they make it into the list ahead of them. 31st, Cheshire Crewe Alexandra. When I was making this list, I thought Cheshire would be higher up. Don't know why I thought that, but here we are. Crewe Alexandra spent the majority of the late 90s and the early 2000s in the Championship. Now they can be seen bouncing between League 1 and League 2. 30th, Wiltshire Swindon Town. Made it all the way down to 30th, and we finally have a team that's played in the Premier League while it's been called the Premier League. While they haven't been higher than League 1 since 2000, they did spend the 93-94 season in the Premier League, and finished dead last. 29th, Lincolnshire Lincoln City. Kicking off League 1 is Lincoln City, the second namesake club in the list. They've spent the last few years in League 1 and deservedly make the list for Lincolnshire. Mind you, another team from Lincolnshire recently beat Man United. No, not Scunthorpe, although let's face it, that probably could happen. 28th, Northamptonshire Northampton Town. Another namesake club. Northampton has spent the last 20 years bouncing between League 1 and League 2. I mean, bloody hell. Over the last 10 years, they were promoted into League 1 in 2016, relegated in 2018, promoted again in 2020, relegated in 2021, and then promoted again in 2023. The shirt makers of that club must be really tired people. Every single year they have to change the league logo on the right sleeve. 27th, Buckinghamshire Wycombe Wanderers. Yes, there will be angry MK Dons fans, but even you know you're being stupid when you say that you're the bigger club. So instead, let's pick Buckinghamshire's real football club, Wycombe Wanderers. Currently in League 1, having, like so many other teams in the list, spent the last batch of seasons in either League 1 or League 2. In all fairness, they did spend the 2021 season in the Championship, where there were no fans to watch them. 26th, Cambridgeshire Peterborough United. Quite similar to Wycombe, but Peterborough squeaked their way in ahead of Wycombe because they've spent more time in the higher divisions than them. Since 1992, they've spent 5 years in the Championship combined. Now they're chilling in League 1 after relegation from the Championship in 2022. 25th, Oxfordshire Oxford United. Great, more namesake clubs. Listen, if all the brilliant minds that came out the university were as good on the football pitch, Oxford vs Cambridge will be a football death match. But nerds don't play football, so... 24th, Devon Plymouth Argyle. Tight call with Exeter City for Devon, but Plymouth just squeezed their way into the list. Despite the two clubs being barely separated at all in League 1 right now, Plymouth has spent most of the last decade in League 2, but they have had strong sequences in the Championship as well. 23rd, Bedfordshire Luton Town. The first club in the top half of the list is the club that I can't help but laugh at right now. Since 2005, Luton Town have changed division 9 times. After being as low as the Conference, they quickly worked their way all the way up to the Prem for the 23-24 season. The whole of Luton didn't shut up about their world-class football. The world-class football teams start the likes of Alfie Doughty and Reece Burke week in, week out, and then they were immediately relegated twice. They actually suffered a triple relegation between 2006 and 2009. Is history going to repeat itself? 22nd, Bristol City. Bristol City and Bristol Rovers is actually a much bigger rivalry than you'd imagine. Though I'm sure if they played against each other now, City would smash Rovers 5-0 at least. City might end up in the Premier League soon, for the first time in their history. They are personally the team that I want to see promoted from the Championship more than any other right now. 21st, East Yorkshire Hull City. The only professional football team in East Yorkshire.
East Riding of Yorkshire.
Hull was still in League 2 when Arsenal were going unbeaten, but they've since turned into a decent Championship side. They've been in the Prem before, but were never really good there. 20th, Berkshire Reading. The only professional football club in Berkshire. Reading are now on course for relegation to League 2, and yet they're top of all the League 1 sides in the list, because their last 20 years have pretty much been all Championship and some Premier League. Mind you, their Premier League spells lasted 2 years, and then then 1 year. 19th, Suffolk, Ipswich Town. It's no great surprise that Ipswich are the only professional football team in Suffolk, and they are a decent side, but in the Championship and not beyond. One of the worst Premier League sides of all time after last season, and they once lost 9-0 to Man United in the Prem. 18th, Derbyshire, Derby County. Back to namesake clubs. The only real competition in Derbyshire is Chesterfield. Derby County have had longer stints in the Premier League than any Championship club mentioned so far, though most Premier League fans will remember them for their 2007-8 campaign, where they picked up just 11 points and became the worst Premier League side of all time. 17th, South Yorkshire, Sheffield United. Quite enjoying the Prem now that Sheffield United aren't in it, playing football like a bunch of drunk Dorises, stinking of everything that reminds you of that one lad's trip to Magaluf. Still a decent side. Yes, they have had a couple recent seasons in League One, but other than that, they've been all Premier League and Championship. 16th, Hertfordshire, Watford. Well, if Watford go down this year and Stevenage come up, I might have to switch the two. Just kidding, Stevenage have never even dreamt of being in the Prem. Another Premier League and Championship yo-yo side. Haven't been in the top tier for a couple years now. Maybe they've lost it. 15th, Norfolk, Norwich City. Arguably one of the biggest missions for an away day in football. Norwich are the serial Premier League and Championship yo-yo club. Relegated more times than I've been called a weirdo. In the 90s they were a solid Premier League side, but then the noughties came around, and we're a quarter of the way through the century, and they still haven't made their mind up on whether they're a Premier League or Championship side. 14th, Staffordshire, Stoke City. First into the Premier League in 2008. They lasted 10 years in the top flight, were pretty much always mid-table, and they've been in the Championship since 2018. But that could change this season. They look on course for the playoffs at least this season. 13th, North Yorkshire, Middlesbrough. Harrogate Town are the only real competition in North Yorkshire, and even then, is it really a competition? Middlesbrough spent 11 years in the Premier League between 1998 and 2009. Have only been back once since. Decent side, and it would be nice to see them return to the Prem soon. 12th, Hampshire, Southampton. I remember watching Leicester win the Premier League in 2016 and remember thinking, well, when are Southampton going to win it? They were a really good Premier League side when I was a kid, but I'm sure everyone now knows them as that side that really should have become Derby 2.0. 12 points. 12 points! 11th, Leicestershire, Leicester City. Speaking of Leicester City, they achieved the biggest miracle in English football in 2016, charging to the Premier League title with Danny Simpson at right back. That's when you know your team is massively overdone, but nowadays they're playing Wout Faes at centre back weekly and getting relegated from the Prem in 18th and 13 points from safety. On the up in the Championship now though, and they might return soon. 10th, Lancashire, Burnley. And our top 10 is comprised of 10 teams that are all in the best league in the world. Burnley are bottom of the Prem pile. They've recently become a northern Norwich, endlessly bouncing between the Prem and Championship. Contenders for relegation this year, which I bitterly hope happens because their football is not much fun to watch. Under Scott Parker, they're about as entertaining as a Spotify advert. 9th, East Sussex, Brighton and Hove Albion. East Sussex is only professional football team. Brighton were newcomers to the Premier League in 2017. They've stayed in the Premier League since. They've even made it to the Europa League before and produced some incredible talent that have come from the most obscure of clubs. 8th, Dorset, AFC Bournemouth. Yes, they were in League 2 just 15 years ago, but they're slowly becoming a European pushing team in the Prem. After a decent first spell in the Premier League between 2015 and 2020, they came back up in 2022 and have since turned themselves into a great side. Imagine if they qualify for Europe this season. If they make it into the Europa League at least, they'll have the likes of Roma, Rangers and Villarreal visiting their petrol station of a ground. 7th, West Yorkshire, Leeds United. Bradford City and Huddersfield Town have had stints in the Prem before, but Leeds are the much bigger and better side. They did spend quite a while away from the Prem between 2003 and 2020, but now into their second spell in the Prem since then, and they look likely to survive. 6th, West Midlands, Aston Villa. Aston Villa started this century in Birmingham City's shadow, taking embarrassing defeats to them home and away, but now they're qualifying for Europe season in, season out. They've got one of the world's best goalies and high market value players all over the rest of the pitch, while Birmingham are employing Damari Gray and Patrick Roberts and losing games against Hull City. Solid. 5th, Nottinghamshire, Nottingham Forest. Well, yes, they are in absolute disarray right now. If you've only just started watching the Prem this season and watching Forest stumble over and over again, is now a good time to tell you that they're in Europe? Strange one that. But I've put them this high up in the list because they've been a great side in the Prem when they've been in it, and they've won 2 Champions Leagues back to back. 2 more Champions League trophies than both Arsenal and Spurs. 4th, Tyne and Wear, Newcastle. Nice to see how a side that I remember seeing getting relegated in 2016 turned into a Champions League side right now. Now that they're a top 6 side, they've got arguably the best stadium atmosphere anywhere in England, and that makes them very hard to beat. And of course they're in here, because the only other options in Tyneham Weir are Blunderland AFC and some club with the Angel of the North on their badge. Third, Greater London Arsenal. Come on then, come at me. 13 Premier League titles, 14 FA Cups, and without a doubt the best team in London over the past 5 years. Yes, Chelsea are the only London club that have at least one Champions League title, but need I remind you, they finished 12th 3 years ago. And I'm sorry, but I had to put Arsenal in third, purely so I don't get a million comments saying,
Arsenal were second. Shocker.
second, Greater Manchester, Manchester City. I felt like putting Man United in here just for the history. Well, comparing United and City's history, it's like comparing a Lamborghini to a cardboard go-kart. But comparing City and United now, it's like comparing ice cream to cat diarrhea. So yes, Man City make it in here. 10 league titles, 7 FA Cups and a Champions League. First, Merseyside, Liverpool. It has to be. 20 league titles, only Man United have equalled it. 8 FA Cups, 6 Champions Leagues. Mad to think that they once went 30 years without a league title. Mind you, Man City went 44 years without one. Chelsea once went 50 years without one. And Spurs are now 64 years without one. Liverpool are the best team in England right now, and one of the best in the world right now. Yeah, of course! So that's the end of the video. Did I actually get any of that right? I know fans of all the clubs in the list, you're going to be raging at me in the comments, but I tried my best. There's too many counties for this. If you enjoyed the video, remember to like, subscribe so you don't miss a thing, and I'll see you in the next video.